Welcome to the very first podcast edition of What You Need to H2Know, where we feature the people, places, and projects in Ontario's water community. I'm Michele Grenier. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Waterworks Association, and I'm excited to kick off our journey by introducing you to a true industry leader. Today, we have a special guest to help us launch this series, Ed Bertolo, past president of the OWWA and the president of Evans Supply Limited. Ed has several years of experience in the water industry and has been a dedicated OWWA volunteer. And today we'll be talking about everything from his journey into the world of water to the challenges and opportunities facing water professionals today. So whether you're tuning in from the office or on your commute, out in the field, sit back and get ready to hear from one of the best in the business. Let's get started. Today, we have a special guest to help us launch this series, Ed Bertolo, past president of the OWWA and the president of Evans Supply Limited. Ed has several years of experience in the water industry and has been a dedicated OWWA volunteer. And today we'll be talking about everything from his journey into the world of water to the challenges and opportunities facing water professionals today. So whether you're tuning in from the office, on your commute, or out in the field, sit back and get ready to hear from one of the best in the business. Let's get started. Ed, as I mentioned, you've served on several OWWA committees, and this is your 7th year on the board now. But what can you tell us about your background and what led you to your career in the water industry in the first place?
Well, first, thanks for having me, Michele. I'm very excited for this initial podcast. My original area of study was actually, believe it or not, electrical engineering. After school was done, I did a bit of R&D work for about a year with a company that was designing smart digital hydrometers. From there, in 1995, I joined Schlumberger as a field support tech for their measurement division. There, I spent about 9 years gaining knowledge in all things related to water, gas, and electric flow measurement. So for the last few years before coming to Evans Supply, I migrated to marketing product management and really with a narrow focus on water meter manufacturing.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. And I always find it fascinating how people seem to find their niches in our business. Can you share a little bit more about a significant moment or turning point in your journey so far?
Well, that's easy. As marketing manager for water meters across Canada, I had the extreme pleasure of interacting with distributors right across Canada from coast to coast. And in the summer of 2004, I received a call from our Ontario distributor, and that company was led by Rick and Linda Evans, which I had come to know very well over the years. They indicated to me that they needed an immediate sales position filled and threw in that they wanted to retire in 3 to 5 years. So they offered me my first chance at owning a business.
Wow. I think it's great, certainly as a self-employed person in the water industry, you have a little bit more control over how you spend your time and how you make your mark. Talking a little bit more about your involvement with the association, what initially drew you to the OWWA and started you on your volunteer journey with us?
So Rick Evans, the founder of Evans Supply, was a former active participant in the OWWA. I believe he was on the membership committee. He was also an Albert E. Berry Award winner and a past president. And Rick, from day one on the job with him, heavily encouraged me to participate in volunteering on a committee, really from the very start, from day one. Being new to municipal sales, he believed that this was the best way for me to be immersed in all things related to waterworks, not just water meters. And I quickly realized that there was way more than just water meters in the journey from source to tap. So the newly formed Cross Connection Control Committee really caught my eye. And that's where I began my 18-year journey on this OWWA committee.
Wow. Um, I guess after your committee journey, sort of when we got you involved more with the board of directors, what was the trigger that led you to choose to do that with us?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a very introverted person. And I would have to say that the most rewarding aspect to me is the relationships that I've developed amongst board and staff members, and to be honest, throughout the entire membership in general. I hope for the most part that I will keep many of these friends for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. You know, we obviously we really value having you on the board.
Thank you.
And we've made a lot of changes at OWWA in your time on the board. But is there a project or accomplishment that you're particularly proud of during that time?
So I'm proud of many over the past. There's been a lot in the 7-year term on the board, some big, some small. But some of the ones that come to mind, first and foremost, is how the association successfully pivoted and navigated through the pandemic. I thought that was a very proud moment. The association hosting ACE23 right here in Toronto, a joint venture that was also a first for co-promoting that event. And our first ever, and hopefully not the last, joint conference with the Water Environment Association of Ontario.
Yeah, the joint conference was a huge success. Our member survey certainly shows that, and so we were really glad that the boards were both so supportive of that event. Um, continuing on that note and looking forward, what motivates you to continue being involved with the OWWA, especially as we get closer to the end of your term on as past chair?
So, the biggest motivation for me, I'd have to say, is wanting to give back to the industry that has provided really so much opportunity for me from the get-go. And if I have to be honest, and I think I've said this before to many board members, if I were asked to take this 7-year journey on the board again, I would definitely do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, you'd be welcome back anytime. I know we have a couple of we've had some really good, exciting meetings and board dinners, in the last few years. Can you share a memorable experience or story from your time here that stands out to you?
Again, there are many. A few that popped into my head when I was prepping for this interview. Arriving at my very first ever board strategy meeting, having all my homework done in advance, and finding out I was the only one, or one of very few. So that was funny. Having the longest presentation of financials by a secretary treasurer at an AGM, also noteworthy. What else? Having to pivot at the last minute and move the No Water, No Hockey social from the arena in St. Catharines to a local dive bar. Probably one of the funnest socials ever. And a real big memorable experience to me is really the decompression sessions that we have in the hospitality suite after a well done conference with lots of fun sing-alongs. So those are my sort of top memorable experiences.
Yeah, we've definitely had some good times. So aside from all the fun stuff that we do as a board, what advice would you give to new or prospective members who want to get involved?
Right. Well, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone that could be a potential newcomer is to not be intimidated. And I've been pretty open and honest about everyone around me that I struggle with anxiety and OCD. And I would say to the newcomers, rest assured, there is a support system in place. And, between staff, the executive director, and the fellow board members, you're in great hands.
Oh, that's very generous of you. But I think you've done a lot to help create that environment as well.
Thanks.
Well, and it is we're going to have to find a way to continue that that culture as you move off the board. So as you get closer to the end of your term, as I mentioned earlier, your term as our past chair will end at our AGM in May of 2025. What can you tell us about goals or aspirations that you might have for the future, either within or outside of the OWWA?
So I'll start off with Evans Supply. We're going to continue to strive to be our customers' most valued partner in the industry. And we're at the same time going to constantly try to evolve in other areas of the industry, specifically for Evans Supply in the services sector. I'm going to continue volunteering my time to committee work for as long as I'm actively in the workforce. And I hope to contribute in any way I can to the growth of the association membership and, try and increase member value at the same time. And on a lighter note, one day I want to own a Tesla Model Plaid. So.
Oh, well, those are all good goals for sure. So drilling down a little bit more specifically, do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives, either at OWWA or Evans Supply, that you're excited about?
So I'm super stoked about the next steps in the evolution of the OWWA, simply because a good portion of the ingredients for these projects were kind of procured as a group during my time on the board. And I think it's time to sort of mix those ingredients and see how it turns out, when we bake it, so to speak. So in particular for me, the One Water Canada Charitable Foundation is really caught my eye. And I hope this will help the association to bring long needed outreach and help to First Nations communities.
Yep. I hope that we'll have you back on the podcast in the future when we've got more information to share about that charity, because I do think there's a huge opportunity for the association to do some good there and to find new opportunities for our members to get involved, in a way that's a little bit outside of the traditional boundaries of the OWWA.
For sure.
Well, we touched a bit on this already, but is there anything else you'd want to share about your vision for the organization, and again, whether that's OWW or Evans, and its evolution, and what role do you hope to play in that?
Well, if I had a vision, it'd be that the OWWA develops some of the newer branches, develops its branches of the AMC and the Charitable Foundation to its fullest potential. I think this will strengthen the association's core competencies and allow for expansion of things like the Advocacy Steering Committee, the Diversity Member Engagement Group, Manufacturers and Associates Council, and newly formed Water Utility Council. I think these are key areas for the association to grow and add value to the membership. As far as next phase for me, I'm going to look to contribute as much as I can to the areas of development, as I said, for the AMC and One Water Canada charity.
Wow. Well, much appreciated. And we certainly lots of opportunities for volunteers to get involved there as well. So I know you love talking about yourself. So let's get on to the uncomfortable portion of the interview here, with a couple of fun questions. And so people can get to know the inner Ed. And so outside of your work with OWWA, what are some of your hobbies or interests?
So this might not sound like a hobby, but believe it or not, I do like DIY home renovation projects. To some, that might not be a hobby, but I love that. I love swinging a hammer, and I love demo days, and I love the transformation of a space. I enjoy listening to music of all genres. I pride myself in being able to name that tune in just a few notes. And my specialty is 80s one-hit wonders. I enjoy spending family time on the beach. Those are kind of my top areas of interest.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to ask Linda how she feels about your DIY, but I'll save that for another day.
Yes.
So aside from the name that tune, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
So this is going to sound really weird, but and I thought about this for a while, and if I could have one superpower, I don't know if it would even be considered a superpower, but it would be the ability to bring people back to life. And how I would kind of apply that is I would bring back all the people that I've crossed paths with over the years, in some way, shape, or form that even had the slightest influence on me. I'm truly indebted to them all, and if I could bring them back, that would be my superpower.
Wow, that's amazing. And speaking of those individuals who've had an influence on you or, guided you in a certain way, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to who's been a significant influence or mentor in your life?
So I've had a few. There's probably three main ones, probably more than a few, for sure. It takes a village, as they say. The first is probably my parents who got me through the early years and gave me a foundation. They taught me to be patient, kind, and empathetic. Um, Perhaps what helps me every day was their sound work ethic. Always be of service, and that I would say I got from them very early on. They had a simple rule: enjoy your work, and if that changes, don't wait too long before you take the fork in the road. It may sound cliche, but it is true. The second main influence I'd have to say for sure is my partner, Linda. She took a leap of faith, left a very successful career, gambling on running her own business. So she's my biggest cheerleader, and I hope I'm the same for her too. And probably Rick and Linda Evans, if I'm going in order. They really entrusted me with their legacy in the industry, and I hope I sort of make them proud. So.
Oh, that's really lovely. And Ed, I'm sure you have. I think you've carried their name on um, very well in the intervening years. And thank you for sharing that. I know that's deeply personal for you, and I think it's where I appreciate it. And just on a slightly lighter note, and we'll wrap it up after this one, is do you have a favorite book, podcast, and you can't count this one since it's our first one, or movie that you'd recommend to a friend or colleague?
So I'm not a huge reader of books, but I do have a few favorite Netflix series. Breaking Bad was one, and I just wrapped up Shameless. I think that was a good one. Lately, I've started a podcast called Smartless. That seems to interest me. Basically, any sort of podcast or mini series that deals with kind of real world issues. I'm not terribly into the fiction. I like series that have themes that deal with real world issues, and maybe throw in some renovation shows like Property Brothers or Rock the Block. I'm pretty simple, so.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks for kicking us off with that one. We'll have to start a running list of Netflix recommendations from OWWA leaders,
Great,
and
great
I'm sure there'll
idea.
be something for everyone in there. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today, and I just want to wrap up quickly by saying thank you so much for being our guinea pig on and letting us test out our podcast platform with you. And I think you shared some really valuable insights, both about your sort of journey into the water industry and through it, and with OWWA as well. And on a personal note, I just want to say that, I've really loved having you on the board these last few years. It's always a pleasure working with you. And like you say, it's so nice to have somebody who is there to be of service and so generous with their time and ideas. So my thanks
Well,
to you.
and the feeling's mutual, Michelle, likewise, and thank you for taking a gamble on me. I'm a little bit neurotic, so taking a gamble on this first podcast with me was it feels good to me. I appreciate it
Yeah.
very much.
Well, it's been a slice. So to all our listeners, take a look at our show notes for our Netflix recommendations, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with another industry leader. And we hope you'll give us a 5-star rating or a thumbs up and share this with your friends. Have a good one.
Thanks, Michelle.